going. Yep.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Mark Levine, and I am the Deputy Director of your New York State Association of Counties. On behalf of our President, Jack Marin, and our Executive Director, Stephen Aquario, we wanted to bring you this offering, this webinar offering, devoted to an employee visitor COVID-19 screening solution. NYSAC is using this virus perimeter security solution for visitors and employees to our office. And we thought that it might be of value to some member counties. So we have provided a brief survey to several of our county officials. And based on the response to that survey, we have provided this webinar. If there is a moderate interest in engaging this company, ActionTrac, after this webinar, we will work with them to develop an aggregate pricing model that can help all counties involved. If you have questions during this presentation, please type them into your question panel of the webinar dashboard, and I will take those questions up after our speaker finishes his presentation. Our speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce Hal Wendell as our presenter today. He's been working for Silicon Valley type software companies for 20 years now. He has held technical and marketing roles for companies like Hewlett Packard and is currently a co-founder and senior vice president of sales for ActionTrac. ActionTrac was started in 2016 and has been growing rapidly in the last few years and growing rapidly in the last few months in particular as a result of COVID-19. The company is headquartered in the San Diego area and has customers throughout the United States. As I mentioned, NYSAC is a customer of ActionTrac. And ActionTrac is a partner for ADP, which some counties use for their payroll systems, and NYSAC also uses ADP for its payroll systems. The company is focused on cloud-based employee productivity solutions. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Hal Wendell. Hal.
Great, thank you, Mark. Appreciate the introduction and overview. So let's jump into it here. We are, as Mark mentioned, ActionTrac is an enterprise software company. We're 100% focused on helping organizations facilitate and kind of help their employee productivity areas across the board. One of the main product areas for us today, and of course the interest is, as Mark suggested, is increasing like crazy, is our enterprise-wide health monitoring solution. We kind of call it comply, assure, and protect. And we'll be talking about those items as we go through the webinar here. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so so a little bit, you heard a little bit of background about ActionTrac. I'll go into just a little more detail. As Mark said, we have large customers across the country, as well as even small to mid-size customers, government, NPOs, etc. So we're pretty agnostic, industry agnostic, so to speak. Our products include the health monitoring solution. Another kind of key product for ActionTrac is our SMS emergency and messaging platform. We also have a video employee recognition solution that is a pretty exciting product for us, and also a micro training solution that's really focused on having employees that really, where the rubber hits the road, have those employees help participate in the training creation. So those are kind of the key areas that ActionTrac is involved in. And today we'll focus, of course, on the enterprise-wide health monitoring solution. Next slide. All right, so we talked about, everybody's aware of the challenges that we're having in reopening the workplace, right? There's There's all kinds of state issue, compliance areas, and there's employee, trepidation about actually going back to work. So counties, just like other organizations, are pretty much in the same boat right now. You have, a lot of your organization, is in the must work category versus the, optional work category, like a health club, for example. But there's still mandates that apply to all organizations, like employees must, submit a questionnaire, having history logs in place for employees, or to access those history logs. And, companies and organizations that try to do that manually, it just becomes a real headache very quickly in terms of tracking and all that kind of thing. Questionnaire updates, if the CDC comes out with a, instead of 100.4 degrees, it's 101.4 degrees. How do you change on the fly, especially if you're, you have 100, 200,000, 3,000 employees? It's not easy to do, and make sure all those employees have the updated questionnaire. And then there's the workplace attendance numbers. A lot of organizations want to kind of keep the attendance at a 50-50 level. And how do you know if you've got over 50% of your employees or not? And so we'll talk about that. And then, of course, there's the employee challenges as well. I mean, a lot of employees are, and you can't blame them at all. Obviously, they're probably a little bit scared of the unknown, and that unknown is leaving the home for the workplace. And now they're again surrounded by a lot of other employees, and what does that mean for their safety? So there's that reinforcing safety aspect that organizations are going through right now as part of the reopening the workplace. Also, kind of setting expectations for employees. Here's the new normal in our workplace. That's been a bit of a challenge as well from an educational point of view. And then how to get the daily communications out so employees are updated on what your COVID, sort of policies are, if there are any changes to the policies, how do we sort of consistently and constantly reinforce those messages? And then, of course, there's the systematic aspect, which is unlike a standard survey where all of us kind of do backflips if, we get an 89.5% response rate. That's not going to cut it in the world of COVID. We need 100%, right? Because all it takes is that one person to show up at work and pretty much, infect everybody else. So 100% is critical. How do we get to 100%? What kind of systems do we need to make sure that we've got 1,500 employees and all 1,500 or whatever number are back in the workplace are submitting their questionnaire? And then, as I mentioned earlier about the in-office versus out-of-office, how do we track who's in office, who's out of office? And then finally, on the system side, the challenge is, what happens if Mark checks yes to one of the questionnaires? Where does that workflow go? Who gets notified, and how soon does that person get notified? And so, if you've got a large number of employees, and on any particular day you might have 3 people checking yes, or maybe even more, where does that workflow get sent to? And it's critical that that gets sent to obviously the right people at the right time, so you can respond to those situations. So, there's some challenges here across the board in implementing kind of an enterprise-wide, questionnaire type solution. Next slide. All right, and so kind of to compound some of the challenges, and I know you guys know more than most people because you work within the county. The counties are highly diversified organizations with different departments and sheriff's office to the county clerk to the county auditor. And there's just many, and all those different departments have different needs. They have different times. They have different locations. If you're, how do you get the Utica location, versus the Syracuse location sort of on board and making sure they're all submitting their questionnaires? How do you get that person at, midnight who checks in at midnight? So there's counties have also some of the challenges about given just the diversity of the organizations that they work with. And when we talk about audiences, and this is true with all organizations, but I'm sure doubly true in the county environment, is you've got visitors, you've got a lot of visitors, you've got part-time, you've got contractors, you've got salary. So you've got a lot of different audiences that you have to work with as well, which is another type of challenge that you guys I'm sure have in terms of meeting some of these questionnaire solution type of requirements. So those are kind of the challenges that a lot of organizations are dealing with. And the good news is ActionTrac was one of the early entrants in the COVID marketplace. We became the leading partner for ADP in terms of supplying a COVID solution. And ADP frankly was ecstatic that we had one, because ADP customers were demanding.
Hold on, please. We have lost Hal. I'm going to pick him back up in just a moment here. We ask your patience and hold. Okay, go ahead, Hal.
So yeah, ADP was fairly ecstatic that we had the type of application we had, because it fits so many different environments. So anyway, so long story short, we were one of the early entrants in the COVID questionnaire solution space, and we kind of couple it in three different critical areas. One is comply. I'm on the next slide. Sorry, slide number 5. One is comply. Another area that we call assure, and the other is protect. So in the comply component of ActionTrac, it's how do you get to 100%? We call that our non-respondent reports. How do you show the state, or how do you show somebody that you've been collecting questionnaires? We call that our history logs, and we'll show you. Hopefully, we can figure out a way to share my screen here. We can show you an example. How do you get questionnaire updates in real time? It's all web-based, and we can do that very easily. You can add questions. You can modify questions. We also have a very, it's not just about questions, because you're pushing this out daily to your employee community. It's also about communicating public service announcement within the questionnaire. It's communicating other aspects that you want to do in the questionnaire, like make sure you're, social distancing. Please make sure you're cleaning the surfaces of the kitchen after you use it. And so we have other mechanisms within our system for you to help communicate your COVID messaging to your employees. And then, of course, comply. Some organizations have to comply and not go over 50%, and we have the way to help you manage that as well in terms of notifications. On the assure side, this is really assuring employees that you've got a system in place to help protect their safety. It's automated delivery of the questionnaires. One thing about ActionTrac is that we understand that everybody on this call has got their plates overfilling, and what we don't want to do is give you more on the plate to do. So ActionTrac is all our products are built in with pretty sophisticated workflow and pushing notifications, so you don't have to go in the system and sort of manage it every day. It's all pushed to you. It's all automated out to the employees. So automated delivery of questionnaires. Company policies and procedures that can be put in the questionnaire as well, and talk about safety and reinforce the fact that safety is the #1 priority, which I'm sure it is in all organizations today. And as I mentioned, the public service announcements. On the protect side, we build in systems to help you get to that 100%. Again, 99.5% response rate's probably not going to cut it. You really need to get to 100%. So we give you the reporting, so you don't have to manually shuffle through or ask department leaders to say, hey, did Joe submit their questionnaire? It's all automated. It all can go into a integrated dashboard. The other aspects of the ActionTrac system to get to your response rate is we don't want to put all the onus on operations or human resources. So we have workflow that can push these reports out to department level managers. Why should somebody in operations have to call, the county clerk's employees to see why they didn't submit their questionnaire? You could push that data out to whoever you need to push it out to help whoever is administrating this system, get to that response rate. And there's no limit to the number of people you can push that out to. Again, we've talked about the in-office, out-of-office. If you see somebody walking around your environment who on the report says they're out of office and they're there on site, there's obviously a disconnect. And you have the ability to say, hey, you're in the out-of-office report. What's going on here? So you have a way. And the other thing that we have found about in-office, out-of-office, a lot of organizations love that feature because outside of just COVID, now they can simply say, oh, I see that Mark is in office. I'll go over and, see him. A lot of times we ask, I wonder if Barbara, is in today, right? We all have asked those questions. And now you got just a click of a button. You can see who's in, what department, where they're in, who's out. So it's really convenient from an operational standpoint. And then again, on the protect side, ensuring the right people get notified. That's critical. That the appropriate people get notified if there is if there's an issue that needs to be followed up on. Okay, next slide. So we talked about customers and why ActionTrac's Enterprise Questionnaire Solution has really been, it's been a popular product for, especially more distributed organizations. And also it's because it's very malleable. There's a lot of different configuration options you have in this. And, and you guys know in the county environment, when you deploy a system, your vanilla is not going to work, right? I don't care if it's Salesforce or whomever, right? You're going to want some workflow changes, maybe there's a little UI change, or maybe there's some wording changes here and there because everybody's got a different way of doing business. And I know counties across the board counties in New York might all be very similar in terms of their work processes, but, just in terms of your workflow and how you want some of the wording to be positioned, all needs to be customizable. We don't hard code virtually anything. So we give our clients the ability to, and so for example, when somebody doesn't pass a questionnaire, what do you want that response to be? Do you want, you have failed, right? But do you want somebody to follow up with that employee? Do you want that employee to call a number? So there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of all the messaging that you guys can put in place. So again, having that enterprise capability is really advantageous to more kind of distributed organizations. Next slide. All right, so I'm on, it starts with the employees, mobile or desktop. So really, this is where it starts, right? I mean, when you talk about a questionnaire, this is an example. We have several different configuration options. I'm just showing one configuration option here. This is called our yes/no configuration option. It's very simple. That automated daily questionnaire gets sent out to employees with a simple question. Are you coming into the workplace today? And if the answer is no, they're done. They don't have to answer the questionnaire. If the answer is yes, then they go through that questionnaire. When that no or yes is also captured in that in-office, out-of-office reporting, so you know exactly who's answered no or yes, and it's also captured in the history logs. If they ignore this email, it's going to be captured in the non-respondent log. So you're going to call up Bill and say, hey, Bill, why haven't you responded to your questionnaire yet today? Now, they'll get reminders from ActionTrac after, X number of hours if we have not seen their questionnaire come in. So all that is automated. The flip side also is the receipt side. So if you look at Hi Joe Roberts, we can send the receipts of a questionnaire right to the employee's mobile phone. Now, a lot of organizations use the receipt to get in the door to security, for example. So if your employees have to walk through security, they can just show the receipt right on their phone, and it has a timestamp and a date and a pass or fail right on that timestamp. If they're going to visit somebody, they can also show the receipt. And so that becomes very convenient for employees that you want to really, make sure that ebb and flow is secure. Okay, so that's kind of where it starts with the employees, and it's mobile based, it's desktop based, it's however the employee wants to answer the questionnaire. It's up to their preference. All right, next slide. And this is now we talk about the other audiences that counties are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, visitors. So within the ActionTrac system, there's also a whole visitor module, and there's several ways to set up your visitor module. You can have them come in with a kiosk, and the kiosk, they can just put their information and hit submit, and then they get that questionnaire. If they fail or pass the questionnaire, it goes right to the reception area. The reception area or security would have the results and be able to look at the visitor log and allow Jeanette in the door to go whoever they're going to visit. And also they can just point their smartphone right at a QR code. So the county could build posters up around and say, if you're visiting the county, please point your smartphone right at this QR code and take our questionnaire. And then you'll be allowed to, assuming you pass, you'll be allowed to come in and visit whoever you're meeting with. So there's a complete visitor solution within the ActionTrac application as well. Let's see, next slide. All right, so next slide shows the COVID Protect Questionnaire Dashboard. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to demo that right now because I don't have the desktop access, but can certainly do so for any of the counties that want to dig deeper into the application. But this is where the administrator or administrators of the system will live. You can see there's one active questionnaire right here. You can easily add a second questionnaire. Let's say you want to have a Spanish questionnaire. You can easily create a Spanish questionnaire. You simply click on that red button on the upper left up there on the right side, but it's that red button for Create Questionnaire. Literally takes 5 or 6 minutes to create your questionnaire. You simply either copy and paste the questions you want to put in the questionnaire, or we have a library that you can just click on the question and it loads it right into the questionnaire. And then in that sequence, you simply activate the questionnaire, and then that activation will start sending that questionnaire automatically. You can see here we also have a shift option as well. So if you have people working midnight shift or a different need for a questionnaire, you've got a shift option. You can see the visitor one to the left of the shift questionnaire. So it's a really, the UI of the dashboard is pretty straightforward, but you got a ton of capability in there. So if I look at the right More button, that telescopes down to several options, including channels. On the fly, you can pick SMS channel, you can pick email channel, you can pick, I want a receipt via SMS, I want a receipt via email, however you want to set this up. So that's a kind of a quick overview of the COVID Protect Questionnaire Dashboard. The only other aspect, there's kind of two other aspects that the county would work with really within the ActionTrac system, is what we call the team list. So if you have 1,000 employees or 500 employees, those employees would simply get uploaded into the team list. If an employee is not in the team list, they're not going to get that questionnaire. So the team list is kind of your heartbeat of the system with an ActionTrac, and there's a lot more things you can do in the team list that we can dive in deeper in a subsequent call. And then the only other area is setting up your workflow. So there's a workflow area in the ActionTrac system where you can say, I want Jeanette to get this non-respondent report. I want Mark to get the questionnaire exception reports. That's when somebody answers yes. I want, John Doe to get the history report, the log report, the visitor report. I want the security person to get visitor reports. So all that workflow can be set up very easily in the system as well. All right, so that's an overview of the dashboard. Next slide. I think we were set that up for demonstration. But Mark, I've kind of covered the elements here at a high level with the dashboard screen. So I'm not sure we need to really kind of get into the demo.
Okay.
Or yeah, I'm happy to if you want.
Yeah, no. I think we do demos for any counties. We can set it up. I can set it up, or we can go direct. The county can go directly to Hal if they want to do a demo. You can reach out to me or Hal. You have our contact information there. So already, Hal, we have been contacted by a couple of counties that want to move forward with this solution. So can you talk briefly about what the next steps might be for a county that wants to get this rolling as soon as they can?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all cloud-based, and let's say the county wants to be live, by Friday. That's certainly this week. That's certainly feasible. What the steps are? You would go register for the system at actiontrac.net/COVID-19. Once you register, we're notified, our training department's notified, and they will immediately reach out to schedule a training. And that training is usually about 1 hour. And we step you through the configuration options. Based on your feedback to us, we help you load up what we call a test group of employees. We highly recommend, if you have 500 employees in your county, that you probably set up 10 to 20 initially, as call it phase 1. So you do all that testing and make sure the workflow is doing what you want it to do, and it's just getting used to the system before you roll it out to all 500. So there's really a 2-phase approach. There's that phase 1, which is the training and getting you up and running with 10 or so or 20 or whatever the number is that you want. Then there's that phase 2, which is rolling it out to all 500 employees. And we have announcement materials for you that you can repurpose if you want to send it out to your employees. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, if you wanted to be live by Friday, you certainly could be live by Friday.
What if a county wanted to test it out to determine whether they wanted to go live? Like they're not sure whether their principals, their county executive, or their county chairs, or their legislature, or their board of supervisor wants to do it. Is there a way that you can work with somebody who's on this webinar to set up a pilot test for the county?
Yes, absolutely. ActionTrac's philosophy is our client, if it's not 100% satisfaction, or if you don't feel like this is for whatever reason a fit, we want you to be 100%, happy and ready to go when you're ready to go live. So the pilot we highly recommend that in our process. There's no commitment whatsoever for the county to test ActionTrac. We have such confidence in our products that we're willing to obviously help you get to that pilot stage, because we have pretty high confidence that you're going to really be impressed. But there's no commitment until you guys go into full production.
We talked about this. Is there a reimbursement mechanism from the federal government through the COVID, any of the stimulus packages or FEMA or anything like that, as part of the reopening, using this to check all the CDC buttons and check boxes. Is there a way for county to get reimbursed by the federal government for this?
Yeah, it's obviously a great question, and it looks like there is potentially a way. Again, you guys, again, know more than most people that there's a lot of nooks and crannies within the COVID, sort of system. But it looks like if this was not a budgeted item, there's two drivers. One, it wasn't budgeted in your annual year budget, and two, it's COVID related. Then it looks like there is a way to get reimbursed. I can't guarantee it because I'm obviously not the government, but it's very clearly written in the U.S. government COVID state reimbursement program that if an item is not budgeted and it is 100% COVID related, then there's a means to get reimbursed for it.
Okay, and what about pricing? If it makes sense for a county, or I should say, it will only make sense to a county if the pricing works for them. So, what can we do at NYSAC, or what can our counties do? How can we work with you to make it more effective in terms of the cost for the county?
Yep. So. I think the good news about NYSAC and having an association like NYSAC is that we can look at what we call aggregate pricing and really help kind of drive that cost down from a volume perspective. And so we committed to NYSAC to come out with an attractive rate for the counties, and really keep in mind that kind of the aggregate number of, there's roughly 50 counties in the state of New York, and really taking advantage of that volume purchase. So we'll be communicating what that aggregate kind of pricing is very soon here.
Okay. At this point, I don't see any other questions from our attendees. If you have a question, please raise your hand. If not, you can reach out to Hal directly, or me directly. It's Mark Levine at nysac.org, and we will set up a pilot test. We will work together on aggregate pricing, an aggregate pricing model for you. We appreciate you taking the 35 minutes of your afternoon to spend with us, and please let us know if you have any further interest in pursuing this solution for your employees and visitors to the county office building. And thanks, Hal, for joining us this afternoon. And I want to thank Jeanette Stanziano, the Director of Training and Education, for putting this webinar together. That will conclude this afternoon's webinar, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.